Howdy, everybody in YouTube land. What we have in front of us today is a Walkman WM-D6. Now, I am not familiar with these Walkmans. The only Walkmans I've ever had or used were those cheap plastic ones from the 90s and 2000s from when I was a kid, but so I'm not super familiar with these more older, fancier ones, but now, from what I understand, this one does not have any sound, and it's had some work done to it before. I don't know what's all been done to it, but yeah, so this one here has got a lot of wear. The screen print is rubbing right off. I don't even know what's supposed to be there, but and this is not even connected to anything. It's just kind of, yeah. So it's a mess, and it has the nice little felt style leather case thing that went with it. But so anyways, this was sent in for repair. Has no sound. As far as I know of, there's still batteries in it, and the motor still runs. But I want to see what the batteries look like. What kind of batteries this use? Oh, well, it's the same stuff that's in the Sony Watchmans. This is a matter of fact, I think that's the exact same battery holder. But there's the serial number, and oh god, this thing has had some leaky batteries in it. And it's still wet in there too. So this was not washed out properly. That could be part of why we don't have any sound. Not entirely certain on that one, but so anyways, we need to see what this thing's doing. So first off, I want to confirm the symptom. It's a little... Anyway, so I got this test tape here, and this is only good for like speed, wow, flutter, and all of that, so nothing particularly special. Now, if I were to guess, the output from this should show up on the meter. At least you would think. Nope, nothing. Nada. Okay. No sound. So we have confirmed the symptom. We've basically got nothing. So, alright. I think we need to take this thing apart and see what's going on. See what's been done to it. So let's do that. So I got the rear cover off. And oh god, it's going to be one of those. Kind of reminds me of those early Discmans where you use 50,000 wires and everything's got this felt tape holding everything down. So nothing really stands out of the ordinary here, but getting this apart is not going to be fun, considering I've never worked on one of these before. So this is, what a pain. Like, seriously, what a pain. I need to figure out how to work this thing while also probing things. Actually, I can probe the bottom of this without taking the circuit board out. You know what? Yeah, let me pull the schematic. So, see if I can get the service data and pull the schematic for this thing so I know what I'm dealing with. So I pulled the service data and the schematic, and I just wanted to look at this for a minute and gauge my bearings to figure out what I'm doing here. Because like I said, I've never worked on a Walkman before. Now, I've worked on many tape decks, but I've never worked on a Walkman. So this is just new territory for me. But electronics are electronics, right? So what I need to do is I need to figure out if both channels are affected equally with no sound. Because here's the thing. I'm staring at the circuit design here, and it appears that the audio paths are separate. We've got this audio playback record amplifier IC, which is an all-in-one Wonder Muffin here. I could suspect that's being bad, but the thing is, it's separate. We've got two separate channels, two separate audio paths. So what I want to do, when you start thinking about this for a minute, you need to figure out what commonality there is between both channels that would affect both channels equally. So if both channels are affected, as in no sound or very weak sound, then we know whatever's going on is affecting both channels at the same time. So now when you take a look at the circuit, okay, what would affect both channels equally? Well, we could have a voltage problem. I noticed right here we've got 10.311 volts. It's powering all of this, which is coming from this DC-DC converter. So if we have a problem with this converter, then we're going to have no audio, because if we look, the motor circuit, which is a weird, funky servo setup I've never seen before, but it's using 6 volts to power that right off the DC jack, so it has nothing to do with this converter. And also, this is one of Sony's infamous center negative designs too. And if someone used the wrong power adapter, well, you know, that could be what's going on here. The motor seems to be working fine, so the servo is not a problem for now. I wouldn't want to troubleshoot that because this thing's a nightmare. So we can kind of rule out the servo circuit, but we could have a 12 volt problem, so we need to check that. What else is common to all of that? Well, we've got this playback mute and record mute switch between the two circuits. So because there's a muting circuit here that we can look at, and I don't know, let's see, 386 headphone amplifier. Is that an LM 386? That's weird. So we've got the audio path coming out through here, and it's coming out the headphone jack, but I don't know where that's muted. That's a muting circuit. So what gets, okay, that's the line out. Never mind. So yeah, I gotta stare at this for a minute and figure out what commonality ties the two channels together that would cause it not to get power or not to provide sound. So voltage is step one. So we need to check the voltage with the tape running. Found a convenient test point for the power, so we're gonna go ahead and start that. Measure that. Voltage is present. So voltage is not our issue. So our DC-DC converter is running, although that's 11.2 volts. So yeah, it's right. So the DC converter is running, so voltage is not our issue. So we need to look at something that's even more common. Let's see, what else do we have here? Well, we have a muting circuit, like I said earlier. So if we follow this, we have our output from channel 1 coming out to the headphone amplifier. But if we follow this, it goes around and down into this muting circuit here. And both channels are connected to this common point. So that's the next thing we should do. We should check the output from here, pin 9. Make sure it looks good. Because we have a 2.2 k ohm and a C126, which is a 1 microfarad to 35 volts resistor network here that will drop off if it's muted over there. But we can check that output right here with an oscilloscope. So let's get this oscilloscope set up and check it right here at pin 9. Make sure we're good there. Because if we're good here, that means I can roll everything out from this stage backwards and only need to focus on this stage forward. Alright, so here's where we are. I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate this on camera. So I'm going to start it up, and then we're going to check one side of this 2.2K resistor R135. We have a nice 350 millivolt signal there, and if I check the other side, it's dead. Nothing. Alright, so we're stuck there. Now if I check the record amplifier, which is pin 16, right there, you got a nice about 600 millivolt signal. So the conclusion that I can draw there is this chip is working. Now I don't know if the voltage levels are normal, but I've got about 350 millivolts here, 500 millivolts there, nothing on the other side of this resistor. So that leads me to believe that we're locked out with this muting circuit. So that's the next logical step here is I need to check this muting circuit and find out if that's being activated for some reason. Which also means I need to figure out where those are without pulling this board out. So that means I got to pull the service manual and look at this physical board diagram to figure out where those circuits actually are. Yeah, because that's the problem, I think. At least that's what I'm thinking it is. That's the next logical step. Because we have this switch here, playback mute, playback record mute, and if those switches are not working properly, it's not going to work. So we got to figure that out. Alright, so we're going to test the first section of the muting circuit. So we're going to turn the power on. And the white wire, which is off the switch, 0 volts. So that means pin 2 of the muting circuit should be 2.5 volts, which is right here. No. That's weird. I'm getting a lot of weird... Never mind. See that? I find that very strange. Yeah, that's very weird. Huh. I wonder if the switches need cleaned. But yeah, that's not normal. That's not going to work. So our muting circuit is engaged. It's staying engaged and disengaged, engaged and disengaged. So the first thing I want to do is I want to check the resistor right there, that 150k ohm resistor. Make sure it's not open, and then yeah, there's some issues going on there. We could have this transistor itself could be bad too. So let me check that. Alright, so this thing has a very strange issue. So alright, if I removed both the muting switch for playback, and then I got the record muting switch, and I checked those, both playback and record, those switches are working. So that's not my issue. So what I've done was I measured the resistance between 2 and up here to 3, and I've got like 45 ohms there, and it varies. So I'm trying to find out where this short might possibly be, because this line goes to multiple. This is disconnected from the switch, so that's not my issue. So if I follow it, one goes over here to this transistor, to the bias circuit. Well, the bias is not engaged, so that's not where my problem is. And if I follow it all the way around to this end, it comes up right here, which turns on the power supply rails, if you follow it, to the headphone amplifiers. So that's not my problem. So there's 12 volts back feeding through here at 45 ohms, but yet I get like 0 ohms here sometimes. Not 0 ohms, but I get no voltage here. Like this transistor is conducting, but it's not. And this pull up should... There's something's not right. I might have to remove this CP301 because I wonder if there's internal shorts inside here. Because something is not right with this circuit. There's something not right with this circuit. Because there should not be 45 ohms between here and here. There's nowhere else in this circuit that can occur unless it's inside this. I'm going to have to pull that out. Alright, so now that I got the board out, I was able to unsolder and remove the muting circuit. And as soon as I did, the short went away. So I decided to check the... I don't know if I can do this on camera, holding the camera at the same time. But when I decided to check the chip, it won't... Yeah, I can't do it. There's a short, like 50 ohms between these two pins. So there's our problem. This is shorting internally. Where am I going to find one of these? I have no idea. I might have to make a new one. I'm not sure how I'm going to fix that. But I'm curious because it kind of gives me a schematic. But I'm curious if there's a way to get this epoxy off of that. I don't know. Yeah, let me figure this out. So apparently From what I've seen online, this is a common problem. This epoxy goes conductive and it creates shorts. Something I didn't know. This is the first time I'm figuring this out. So the solution is to grab something and some acetone and just let it soak for hours. So that's what we're going to do. We're just going to let it dissolve the epoxy, or at least try to anyways. Now with the muting circuit disabled, I want to at least see if the rest of the deck works, because without the IC, we won't have muting at all, but we can tell if everything else works. So I rewound the tape. Let's see what happens. Oh, well, that's a difference. Seems to be working fine. But I got no activity from the VU meter. That may or may not be normal, I don't know. But I have sound. So that's certainly better than what we had before. Alright, so really it's all about waiting for that epoxy to dissolve, if that even works. I don't know. I might have to actually make a new module. We'll see. But yeah, the rest of the deck seems to be working fine. Sony with Sony, why not? Alright, well, it's been sitting overnight and my acetone's nearly gone. But that's fine. So it didn't dissolve like I thought it was going to do, but apparently from what I understand is it's supposed to soften it so it'll just peel apart, kind of like wax. Apparently. I don't know, but... Oh yeah. Yep. Look at that. Alright, so... Yeah, we're gonna have to see if we can't peel this guy apart and get this thing situated. Wow. It actually worked really well. It actually worked really well. It's kind of surprising. And yeah, it's like it turns it into a consistency of rubber. This is like a rubber band now. So that's kind of impressive. So there is something to that. You can depot these hybrid ICs just by leaving it in a vat of acetone. So, alright. And we took a measurement of the two pins and the short is gone. So yeah, these things get conductive. So there we go. So this stuff gets conductive and causes problems. I think that's what I have going on with my Pioneer CD player, which you'll see in a later video. So anyways, I'm going to go ahead and pull that cassette deck apart again, and I wanted to go ahead and pull the rest of these out that are potted and depot those as well, because I was having problems with the highs roll off. I'll include some of those earlier in the clip. So that's probably my same issue there too. So we're going to go ahead and depot all of that, which is going to take yet another 12 to 24 hours. So because we have at least 1, 2, 3 more of those we need to do, and looks like someone has already done one. That looks like it was potted formally. So yeah, we're going to take the other 3 out and depot those as well. And I'm hoping that solves our problem, especially with the equalization filters that are happening, because we're having issues there as well. And there we go. So I got the other 3 out, and they are now in the acetone, so hopefully that will loosen up so I can get all of this cleaned up too, because that should solve the problem with the equalization rolling off the highs. Because I noticed as I was playing the tape, which I didn't get on video, it was intermittent. Like my highs would come in and start blaring loud, and then it would go muffled again. So I think that's why. And then that is part of the motor servo circuit, so we're going to clean that up too. Alright, so now the other 3 is complete. So I got all that scraped off as I possibly could. That's like a 2904. I'm not sure. And then I got these two. And there's no shorts. There's nothing open. All of it looks good. It's the thing that sucks about having eczema. It really attacks your skin. Anyway, so that's done. I'm hoping now all of our problems are going to be solved with all of this crap off the hybrid ICs. So let's get that stuff put back into the player and see what happens. All of those hybrid ICs reinstalled. This one was already done previously. Yeah, that one threw me off a bit because I had no idea. Now I do. So, alright, the muting circuit's installed and the two equalizations installed, and then that one's put back in there. So, well, point of no return. It's now or never. Does it work or does it not? That's a negative. It's just cutting in and out. And it's distorted. Yeah, see that? No, that hybrid IC has been damaged, so I'm going to have to remove it. Alright, I've done some more documentation with this module here. I went ahead and wrote down the resistor values. To be fair, they're probably both 47K. These two are 22K, and then there's a resistor here, even though it doesn't show one, and it's a 10K just like this one. So that's now been documented. But I'm measuring about 80K of leakage between the collector and base of these two transistors. Well, this is about 150K, that's 80K. And then on this PNP, there's 1 megohm of leakage between base and collector. But if we look at this diagram, well, there's no direct path between base to collector on either of these. And I got leakage there. Same thing here, base to collector. There's no direct path, but I have leakage there. So I already know that either these transistors are bad or the substrate's bad. But there's still a little bit of that spooge in there. So we're going to have to remove those transistors. It's possible when this module was shorting, it was damaging those transistors. So we have to remove those so we can figure out if we can actually fix this. We may or may not be able to. Alright, I removed the transistors and did some checking, and this circuit design is slightly different than what they've indicated here in the schematic. So what I did was I blew it up and I actually redid this. This is the correct schematic. So that resistor doesn't connect here. Instead, it connects down here. And then there's another resistor that goes up here over to here. But everything else is roughly the same. Oh, and I had to add this one because it didn't exist. So there were some changes. But I was getting some weird leakages between these three. And when I removed them, that doesn't exist anymore. Except for here. So I should be getting like 90K between here and there. And that's right. But there shouldn't be anything between here and here. And I was getting it. But now I don't get it anymore because, well, I removed the transistor. So we've definitely got issues because if you look, some of that epoxy got up underneath the transistors as well. So I think that was also conductive in this case. So I'm just going to put some MMBTA06s and 56s in there, or you can probably use a 42 and 92. It's not really critical. That's what I have on hand. I'm just going to change those three with new ones. But instead of trying to fight with this thing, I'm probably just going to tack it up here just to make sure that's all good. Oh, and that pin came off because it was hard to get to it with that in the way, but not a big deal. So yeah, I'm just going to change those three out, and hopefully that solves my problem. Alright, well, 3 new transistors were tacked in place, so I'm just going to go ahead and put that back in there, and I hope it works this time. No guarantees, though. Fixed! Now that we know this thing is actually properly working now with the replaced transistors on this module. Now I gotta get this module off. I made the mistake of just edge soldering it just in case it wasn't right, which makes it nearly impossible to get off without destroying these pads. I don't know what I was thinking, but sometimes I just don't think, but that's okay. We'll get it off of there. Getting it off courtesy of Chip Quick. Simple. Alright, so we've got this thing all put back together now. I want to go ahead and run a test tape, because now that the muting circuit is functioning properly, let's see, I want to make sure the motor speed is set correctly. We're going to use a spectrum analyzer. This is 3 kilohertz, so let's see here. Pretty good, actually. Here we go. All right, so that's it for this thing, I think. Just go ahead and button it back up and move her down the line. Alright, so the next thing I wanted to do was I wanted to test, because this is the only microphones I have right now, I wanted to test the record feature and how that worked. Now, this is a brand new Maxell tape, and I'm surprised these things are still manufactured. The quality on this tape is absolutely atrocious, but that's beside the point. This is when I quickly discovered another problem, and I'm going to play it back here so you understand what I'm talking about.
Testing, 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 testing. So let's see, 10, 9, 8, 7, testing, testing, testing.
Anyways, I did a first recording with doing the testing thing, and it was very distorted. So I took this apart, I sprayed the switch, the record play switch, and I did a second recording. And it's still just as distorted, but then the second recording is over top of the first recording. So that indicates, and it's still distorted, so that indicates two problems here. One, and it's related to one thing. So basically this bias oscillator circuit is not functioning, because that runs the erase head, but also it's what sends a voltage. If you follow this circuit, it sends a voltage up to the record play heads. So it adds a bias level. It's an AC bias circuit. So that is not working at all, and I don't know why. So we need to figure that out. And there's some adjustments here for metal, and it's all done through this equalization network, I'm pretty sure. So anyways, I'm going to play around with that. This is a record bias switch. I wonder, where is this adjusted from? The record play switch? I'm not sure. So anyway, there's a problem in this circuit. So now we got to figure that out. This thing's been a saga. Like, it's been one thing after another. I don't like working on Walkmans. This is the first one I've ever worked on. And now I know why I got it. Because it is a bloody nightmare. So I didn't have any voltage at the bias drive circuit, so I chased it all the way back, and I didn't have any voltage here either, which turns that circuit on. So I chased it all the way back, and it looks like we go right back into this muting circuit. And I had 0 volts here and 0 volts here. Both switches are engaged. That one makes sense because we're in record mode, but that switch does not make sense. Why is this switch shorted when we're in record mode? Something's wrong there. So what I did was I lifted the wire going to that switch. As soon as I did that and I probed the erase bias head, look at this. I had to put the probe on times 10, so I'm running about 64 volts. But we now have bias drive. So that, I gotta find out why the record playback muting switch is shorted when it's in record mode. But when it's in play mode, it's not, because otherwise, if it was, I wouldn't have any sound at all. So something's finicky there. I need to figure that out. Alright, I think I see the problem. Something in this mechanism is worn out, because this button has a lot of play. But if you look, if I push the button in further, it releases that muting switch. But if I let go of that button, it wants to ride back up, which mutes it, which is the issue. So this button's supposed to be down further in this groove, not up that. So what holds this back? Well, if we look at that lever looks like it might be a bit worn. So it's supposed to hold that back against this pin, because if I pull this, well, maybe not. Yeah, that releases it. So I'm thinking that's worn out, and that might be our problem. So we're going to have to fiddle with this switch a little bit. I don't know. That's a big problem. So here's what I did. I adjusted this up as far as it can go, but I also took this tab. You see that little tab right there? And I bent that back this way. It's just wear. It's not gonna last, but that it might hold up, it might not, but we'll see. So that was likely my issue. So I'm gonna go ahead and put this back together again, and then test it and find out what we got. I think we can finally wrap this video up. If you have stayed this long and watched this video all the way through up to this point, I deeply appreciate it. I appreciate my viewers. This was definitely a weird one. This one had a lot of different faults. It had a lot of different issues with the muting circuit. It had issues with the erase circuit, and which went right back to the muting circuit, but it sounds like it works fine now. So playback is working properly, speed adjustment works properly. It looks like the record feature is working perfectly fine at this point. So I think we can finally wrap this video up. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe and all of that fun stuff. If you have a comment, please feel free to leave one. Until next time, guys, thank you for watching.